Tonight, I want to talk about failure to maintain forward movement. In other words, your car's off the road, right? The $2 word for being off the road. And this isn't because you've been in a car crash or you've got a flat tire. It's something else. So I'm going to start from the back of the car and work forward, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. Then, if you got something to add, like right there, just break in. That's okay. And but then afterwards, we can all share some experiences or include stuff on the list that I haven't got here. So as far as the rear axle goes, you can snap a half shaft. T-types all the time, snap and half shafts. Midget snap and half shafts. The spline they've got is I don't know how to explain it. Of course, it's not involute. It's coarse cut, bad design, and they shear. Tom Lange sent me a note from and he's in Maine. The T-typers know who he is. He says, make sure you tell everybody I've got these nice half shafts, and they're less than the regular half shafts on the market. Tom Lange, if you can't find him, contact me. I'll put you in touch. Tom and I are business partners from 1971 working on MGs. So we each took different routes to get here. I stayed with MG. He went through the Huntington Antiquarian Library in California for a long time. Anyway, he's got good half shafts for T-types. You got to have oil in the differential. If you don't, the rear axle can come apart. Usually not on a MGB, not a hypoid, but the bevel gears, those things they strip the gears off, and you can't go farther forward. There's a specific failure in the Salisbury tubed GT differential. It's 1965 to 1980 MGB MGC. And there's a shaft in there that holds the pinion wheels, the two of the spider gears that allow the half shafts to turn at different speeds when you're going around a corner. And that shaft can walk out. It can shear. It can shear the pin that holds it and walk out, and it gets closer and closer and closer to the pinion. And all of a sudden, it comes loose and hits the pinion, and both half shafts stop moving. So this happened to my customer on U.S. Interstate was U.S. 131 north of Grand Rapids at speed 70 miles an hour. He said the rear wheels just locked up. And he did two 360s and somehow didn't get hit. And I've got one of those half shafts with the involute splines, and they're twisted. It was incredible. There's another one. Bob Cook had it in Montana. Ordered the parts overnight. Took him 4 days to get. That's how close Montana is. Overnight is
6 days.
so, okay, all right, and on his GT diff, the splines came loose from the hub. Probably operator error earlier on. That nut wasn't tight enough because that rarely ever happens. So anyway, the stuff walks back and forth, and so Bob let the clutch out. You could hear something in the car go zzz, and if you looked at the speedo, if I thought to ask him to look at the speedo, it would have been registering because the drive shaft is turning. It's just one of the half shafts is spinning free. So anyway, that's another kind of problem you can have, and you can also lose the splines on your wire wheel. Once they get down to a diameter of 2.450 is the width of the splines, but down to about 390, then you can step on the brakes really hard. The wheel will continue because the hub and the brake rotor and the hub all come to a stop, and the wheel spins around it and unscrews the spinner. So those are bizarre. I mean, I can only come up with a handful of those in my whole working career. Those are odd. You can have a U-joint failure. You can lose a rear U-joint at speed. Oh my gosh, that drive shaft is turning at engine speed. What, 3 grand, 3,600, dancing around in there? It'll kill you. I mean, you got to get that engine turned off right away. And if the front U joint goes out, then the speed, the momentum of the car is spinning that shaft. That can be really dangerous. You get lots of warning. You get clinks, you get squeaks when you take off. You get a clunk, 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 clunk when you're on and off the brakes. And a clunk accompanied by a ringing sound, like a bell, textbook bad U joint. But again, those are rare. Those truly are rare.
It
Um,
happened to us a number of years ago.
Okay, but what I meant was that you get warning. You get warning, and once the U joint's out of place and it's spinning at 3,500 RPM, it's so out of balance that the whole car just shakes. Something's wrong. So,
Yeah, we talked about that last week, John. I've got a picture up here of the completely horribly worn out, and it had all those characteristics.
oh
Clunk,
yeah, yep, yep. But they had that twist out at
but
speed.
it didn't actually come out. The only one I've had do that was on a TR4 IRS, and the outer U joint on the half shaft went out, and that's not good because it's steel and that trailing arm is aluminum, and the aluminum lost.
I believe it. I believe it. Oh my gosh.
Should I run out and get the knockoff that I showed you?
That's that you Terry's wife they were tandeming home from Portland, Oregon. All of a sudden, um, Carol's right front wheel just came off the car, and how could that happen at speed? How could it possibly happen? And you never find the spinner ever. You might find the wheel in the weeds, but you never find the spinner. The spinner was stuck to the wheel, stuck to it. Who knows what the problem was? I have no idea what was going on there. And but
I'll run out and get it. I can probably hold it up to the camera.
all right, okay. Um, the gearbox doesn't go bad. Oh, you can lose a lace shaft. It can get really growly in first, second, and third, but you put it in fourth and it's okay. Even if you're missing gears, teeth out of gears, as long as you're not missing too many of them, everything still moves in fourth gear. So you can still maintain forward motion. Can't use first, second, or third, maybe even reverse, but you can keep up a forward motion. That's pretty odd, especially when you're driving down the expressway going to a wedding, and all of a sudden it comes apart. You've had lots of warning on this. Then there's the clutch. There's two failures in the clutch. One is a failure to disengage. So you try to put it into gear and it won't go. Try to put it in reverse. The teeth are skating. But the other one is you put it in gear and it won't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere, and that's the clutch. So you can ruin a clutch when a clutch is worn down to the rivets. Then there's not much sandwiching effect left, and the clutch will not move the torque that the engine's putting back into the gearbox unless you're very, very, very slow and very careful. So I had a customer whose son was stuck in Lansing, Michigan, an hour away with a bad clutch, and she said, "Oh, he called me and he's in a panic and the car won't even move." I said, just tell him to let it cool down, just cool down, and then be really gentle with it, and you can drive it back to town. Well, she had a tow truck go get it because it was her kid at college, but you even though a clutch is slipping, if you careful, and you get lots of warning that the clutch is going to start slipping because the pedal disengages with a new clutch 3/4, 2/3 of the way down the stroke. And then as it wears, you have to push it less and less and less until right towards the end, you barely have to touch it. Then you don't have to touch it at all. In the with a lot of torque in it, or the engine breaks free from the gearbox. You can also have a problem, a hydraulic problem, where the piston pops out of the slave cylinder. Piston pops out and it jams it in neutral. It jams it like your foot's on the pedal. So all you got to do is loosen up the slave, and at least you can move the car. And with a problem with disengagement, if you get a problem with disengagement and you're trying to move the car forward, you can turn the car off, put it in second gear, start it in gear. The car leaps forward, but you get out on the road and works just fine. It's just a real hassle at the stoplights and stop signs. So you work hard to avoid those. Then in front of the clutch lies the engine. So usually when an engine fails, you've got some warning. It doesn't just blow up. Sometimes they do, but that's usually there's some rattling or low oil pressure or something going on first. Not always. Not with me and not with my TD in the I don't know, in January 1968. It just let loose. Piston just let loose. But usually you get some knocking around in the block, low oil pressure, something like that. And you can drive a car which has got a knocking rod, at least to get it off the road, but you can't drive home. You can't. It just doesn't work. And if you lose a valve, one of the exhaust valves gets a hole in it, then you're running on three cylinders, and you can run on three cylinders from Detroit to Grand Rapids. The longer you run on three cylinders, the more damage you might do to the block or the head or both. You can ruin them just because those hot exhaust gases are passing by. So it's never good to drive too far on a faulty valve. But 3 miles, 5 miles, 15 miles, it's a whole lot different than 150.
So now you tell me. So burnt the valve, discovered that the hole was small enough to where if I kept the RPM over 3,000 up around 3,500, it ran just fine. But so I only drove it about 50 miles after that to get it home.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You're just asking for trouble if you go for it. It's like holding a cutting torch on the valve. Well, the valve's already ruined on the cylinder head. Eventually, some of it goes away. So now we're down to the engine. Now we're down to the stuff that actually really happens most of the time. So maybe you got a failure if your car quits. Maybe it's gas, maybe it's fuel, maybe it's emissions. So you always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first. So if you get a more modern car, you can disconnect the fuel evaporative line that goes over to the charcoal canister. Just take it loose. Take it loose from the carburetor. Try to start the car back up. Maybe it works. Hey, it's not fixed. You still got to take care of the canister, but you can drive the rest of your life with that disconnected. That's the vent that goes from the carburetor to the charcoal canister. Sometimes you get a vacuum in the charcoal canister, and that'll cause the carburetor to lean out so much that it won't or doesn't want to run well. You've got the ignition system. So the ignition system starts at the key, starts at the battery, but it starts at the key and goes down to the coil and goes into the distributor, and there it's switched. Is it switched with points in the condenser, or is it switched with electronic ignition? So back in the day, when the cars still had factory ignition on them, they'd say, "Oh, my car would quit," and then 2 seconds later, start right back up and run perfectly. And so I tell them, watch the tach. Next time it kills, right, you're in traffic, all of a sudden the engine's dead. You're not looking at the tach. But if you can, next time it kills, look at the tach. And if the tach drops, just like you shut the car off, then you know it's ignition. You know what the problem is. It's original electronic ignition. But it's real difficult to tell that. So do you have spark or not? And you can take a spark plug wire off one of the spark plugs. And usually the depth keeps you from checking it. But if you got a Phillips screwdriver, you can shove that up inside and hold the shank of the screwdriver against the engine or the dipstick or the coil or something, and have your associate spin it over. You either get a spark or not. And how big's the spark? Oh, like that. Quarter of an inch, maybe at the most. Snap, snap, snap. If you're getting a spark, then probably there's timing, there's all kinds of other stuff that can be going on. Even a bad condenser, you still get a spark. But at least you got the spark there. Glenn from Glenn's MG service in St. Petersburg says, the automotive industry knew how to wrap a condenser for 100 years. They made perfect ones. And then about 10 years ago, they forgot how. So anyway, we got a lot of problems with condensers right now, and you can always carry another condenser. The real trick is carry a whole nother distributor with you, so you don't have to diagnose anything. You just
I'm
pull the
using
old
your,
one out, put the new one in, just easy,
okay.
just like that. And here goes my mute all button. Thank you. So
I had a problem with the wire between the coil and the distributor broke, and all of a sudden the car stopped. The tach went to zero, and then it came back a second later and drove a little bit, and then it left me on the side of the road. I found the wire, quick fix, got home, fixed the permanent.
hey, hey, it's there's nothing like a visual inspection. Cheapest, easiest, simplest thing first, and that's a look at it. Yep. I had a Catholic priest who had a fan belt changed in Detroit, and he started the car back up and it ran poorly, and he didn't want to hang around there. He drove all the way from Detroit back up to Grand Rapids and brought it right in the shop. He says, "I just had the fan belt changed because it blew the fan belt, and now it doesn't run right." And I opened the bonnet, and one of the spark plug wires is off, the one over the alternator, you know. And I said, "Well, if you just looked, if you just looked, you might have found it." But anyway, there's a wire that breaks down inside the distributor on the low tension lead, and sometimes that's hard to find because it's sheathed in sort of cloth, and that can fracture all the way. And sometimes it isn't quite so evident or obvious what the problem is. Um, so if you've got a fuel problem, that's a failure to get fuel into the carburetor, or the carburetor is pissing out as much fuel it wants to come into it, neither dumping on the ground or dumping into the charcoal canister or making the mixture way too rich or something like that. So those are the two problems that you've got. You got a fuel pump that's faulty or it's overflowing. Those are your fuel problems. Um, and the last one is cooling system. If you've got a leaking heater control valve, it'll drip onto the distributor, which then makes the distributor not distribute the spark. The spark goes to ground. So is that an ignition problem or a cooling problem? Anyway, fortunately they put that heater control valve right over the distributor, so you know when that valve is leaking. I think I talked to somebody this past week, who said he purchased four of those in the past 3 years. There's a quality problem, but maybe eventually, maybe they'll get better. So anyway, that's just really, really fast. I mean, that's just like, why can't you go forward? The engine won't run, the clutch doesn't work, so forth. So anyway, I'm interested in hearing what I've forgotten, like the ignition relay in a 77 through 80 MGB that can fail, and then your ignition doesn't work, stuff like that. But
Hey,
anyway.
John, that's good. We had gone up to Banner Elk, North Carolina, and we're coming back, and my TD just stopped. It's like you turn the key off, just pulled over to the side of the road. Turns out that the large banjo bolt at the bottom of the number one carburetor had unscrewed and fallen out. So all the fuel was just running straight to the ground. That was the bad news. The amazing thing is it had fallen out and landed on the chassis member with the washers right beside it, and we put it back on, tightened it up, and I have driven it ever since. But anyway, so you might want to just every now and then when you go through your motor, just kind of put your hand on all the nuts and bolts and see if one of them is real loose. I've started doing that.
Yep. After that, I think I would too. Yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh. So who else has had an off the road situation that maybe I haven't covered or covered too quickly?
We've had a few, but the one was interesting is our friends MGC. We're near the Colorado-Utah border, and we start blowing oil. And fortunately, the little town had a Walmart. We pulled in there in the shade. He pulled the head off, thought he had a blown head gasket. He had a chunk out of his piston.
Oh,
So we put it all back together, and he thought about towing it home. He drove it home. He said, I said, you still got one more cylinder than I got. And disconnected the plug and plug wire, and he drove it all the way home. I was amazed that he could do that and didn't use as much oil as he thought he would.
Oh, if you pull the plug, it's not firing. It's not, it's not going to do any more heat damage to the head or the, yeah. So
I mean, like
amazing.
those Cadillacs that did 4, 6, and 8.
I think that was in a controlled manner. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we had
Hey, John,
Yes.
I was on my way up to Namgur for this last convention about 3 hours into my trip, and my car my MGB just quit.
What year?
And 76.
Okay.
And in a small blessing, it quit, and I coasted into a mechanic shop. And we worked on it and worked on it and worked on it, and we could get spark to the top of the cap, but we could not get any spark out of the cap. We replaced the cap, the points, all the parts. Nothing would work. What do you think was we ended up changing distributors, and it fired right up. What do you think was the cause in the distributor for it to just fail like that?
Well, you didn't say rotor. Did you change the rotor?
Changed the rotor, changed all the parts,
Oh my gosh.
even changed the coil.
Electronic ignition?
It wasn't. No, it was points.
Oh, I have no idea. Don't know. I've got some background noise here. I've got to hit the mute all. There we go. So
What do you think would in the distributor could fail like that it would not allow spark out?
it doesn't make any sense.
With that low tension wire you're talking about, if that failed, would that do it?
Then you get spark going into the cap, wouldn't you? I mean, you wouldn't have spark going into the cap. I mean, you got to make the spark. The distributor makes and breaks the connection, and if you get spark coming out of the coil, if you got it coming out of the coil, then it goes into the cap, it goes into the rotor, and goes back out of the cap and out of the wires. So there's only a couple things that can go wrong there on the top end, unless you're out of phase, which can't happen unless you put faulty parts in to begin with. So I don't know. Beats me.
Okay. I just thought maybe you had a trick up your sleeve that had happened before, but
Not real fast.
right.
No.
Thank you though.
Hey, I'll talk
John,
to you. Call me tomorrow though.
John, I had the similar problem to the one gentleman who was talking about his carburetor. I have
Yeah.
a 74B with HIF4s, and I was driving to a car show when the little screw that holds the float in place backed out.
Oh, jeez.
So I could, right away I was smelling gas. I pulled over, looked inside, turned the ignition on, and I could see where the fuel was leaking out of. I said, oh no, I turned the ignition off, and I looked down in the frame rail, and there the screw was sitting down in there. That was the good news. The bad news is I had to take the carburetor off. This is on the side of the road, flip it upside down, take the cap off the carburetor, hold the float in place while I was trying to get that screw in while traffic's whizzing past. So the good news is I got it all hooked up and got it back home. So yeah, you're right. Check all those little screws like that before you head out on a trip.
That's a good idea. Yep, those HIF carburetors. I changed a float in a parking lot with the carburetor in place by taking the bottom of it off. And I apologize to the guys that there's no pretense of having the float height correct here. I hate HIFs. You always got to, no matter what you do to them, you got to take them off the car. So anyway, okay. So who else has been off the road? Yes,
I had a situation where on the distributor cap, the center piece that sticks straight down or rubs onto the rotor had worn off to the point where it wasn't making contact anymore.
Okay.
Of course, I didn't know that until I was, out in the middle of nowhere going to a car show, and it just quit. And I didn't hear the pump pumping. I thought it might have been a fuel pump. And I had to get our friendly guy that told me back home and all like that. But it took like 2 days to figure it out because I wasn't getting spark, but everything was there. And so we just started doing the old replace this until it works type, which I hate to do, but that's the only thing we could do. And I did put another cap on and it fired right up.
Bingo. So must have been the cap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Similarly,
you can get that cap really wet. If you're washing the engine, you get the engine wet. And the easiest way to get it all cleaned off is just hit it with compressed air. But if you don't have your thumb on that carbon pin there, the air, the compressed air will get behind it and send it to a recess in your garage, which you didn't even know existed, let alone confined. So yeah, and it ruins the cap's shot. You got to buy a whole nother cap just because of this stupid little spring and carbon
Well,
pin.
yeah, I was fortunate enough that AutoZone where I live, they have a cap and all that stuff for it. So I hadn't tuned it up for a while, so I thought, well, so I threw all that stuff on and it fired right up, and it's been working great ever
Hey,
since. So
very cool. Great.
similarly, John, the little wiper that rubs against the cams on the distributor that opens and closes the points it's made out of some kind of plastic or bakelite or something. It can break and then it no longer opens and closes the points. But if you look at it, you don't really see a problem.
Not until you're spinning it over. Yep. And
Exactly.
so there's the old TK50 tune-up kit 50 included points and condenser, and the points Lucas points, and they had a red plastic rider to go on the cam follower. And if you put the wrong coil in your car, you put a later model coil, it would overheat the ignition circuit. And of course, the spark you're getting out of the coil is twice as big. Oh boy. But the problem is you're running twice as much current through the points, and they get hot. And then that little red thing the red cam rider would fail. And you really wouldn't, just like the broken one, you just didn't see it until you started spinning it over. And you go, wait, how come the points aren't opening? So, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, I
John,
gotta.
Gary and Victoria.
Yes.
I've got three small issues, and everything's taken care of, but there's a beautiful 270-kilometer ride called the Pacific Marine Circle Route. And on three different occasions, I've done it many times, but here's three times that I had problems. Once, as I was traveling 40 kilometers away from Victoria, I heard this horrible rattling sound in my engine compartment. I had just adjusted my valves a couple of 100 kilometers before, and I've done this for years. Everything's been fine. And I opened it up, and one of the nuts came off, and I actually had a gap on one of the valve lashes of half an inch.
Right. That'll rattle a lot. Yep.
Yeah. Well, so thankfully I was able to fix that, and now I double nut
Okay.
everything. The other one is heater control valve,
Yep.
which is a perennial problem
Yep.
with so many people. I installed a ball valve.
I was just at this MG 2025, and I can't begin to tell you all the things with levers, taps like a midget, um, cool valves hooked up to the original control. They're probably easier and better to work than the original one. It's a whole variety of those. Yep, it just continues to be a problem. The
And one
original, the original
and
ones
one
used to last a long time, but it's something about the quality of production. So,
one more thing, I don't know. I put a little bit of tinfoil on top of my distributor. It doesn't look original or whatever, but it'll sure keep any fluid from getting into the distributor.
no, maybe sounds like a recipe
No,
for a misfire to me.
no.
Well,
Um,
it's been running like that for years. And the third one is, again, doing the circle route. My water choke, I don't know what, there's three bolts that hold the water choke onto whatever the housing is behind it. And that came loose. I ended up with one. I wasn't aware of the parameters of running the car with the way it was. I spent 3 hours on the side of the road, and I needed three hands. And finally, an American stopped by, and in the rain.
see, we aren't so bad, are we?
Well, no. So no. So
That was them.
American stops by. His wife's in the car, and he spends an hour with me
Oh
helping
my.
helping me get this thing back on the road. So those bolts that hold the heater
Yep.
the water choke on there.
Yep, that's always part of any late model Stromberg attention. When you're underneath the bonnet, just checking stuff out, you always make sure those screws are tight. Thanks, Gary. Thanks.
Now, what would cause the distributor cap to pop off a little bit on the bottom where you have the two clips? It's a 25D, 72 MGB.
Well, if the rotor isn't concentric, and it's knocking it from the inside,
right?
that could just knock it off. I don't know how close. I've never sawed a cap apart and watched to see how close.
What happens? I just took my car out this year for the first time last week. I got it running. The old thing with the little popping going on when I first got it running, but I'm going down the road and the actual tack, oh my gosh, went all the way over and down and everything died. Totally dead. So I said, okay. I let it sit a while. Crank, nothing. I said, okay, let me get out, lifted up the bonnet. I look, I grab my distributor and it feels a little loose. So I undid it, put the bottom one on first tight, put the top one on first, went back in, started the car, and got it home as quick as I could. It's happened twice to me. And
I must be. All I can imagine, the clips are the same, the distributor is the same. Original distributor in the car. You got the original distributor in the car? You think so?
25D original. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's the cap. Change the cap. It's got to be. It's got to be the cap.
Could it be something to where without the cap one time? This is like this, say the third time. Excuse me. Could it be the condenser or coil could be on its way out because when it cools down, when it only happens when it gets to normal operating temperature, it just shuts down. Bang. The tack goes wild, shuts off, no ignition. Turn the key on, crank, no spark. Tested it. Let it sit a while.
You're not telling me that the cap is coming loose 3 times. You're telling me that the car's quit 3 times.
That's correct.
Okay, correct. Electronic ignition or points?
Points condenser.
Coil maybe.
Gas fumes in the cap.
What's that, Pat?
Gas fumes in the cap.
Gas fumes?
Yeah, you got sparks in there. I did it once.
That's interesting. To pop the cap off?
Well,
how'd you get gas fumes in there?
I was actually chem tool. But it blew that cap right off.
Oh my gosh. All right. Okay. So
just a possibility.
Something's killing the entire ignition system. It could be low tension on a low tension side. I'm not sure.
With a 12-volt test light, volt test light, you can always go over the distributor side of the coil with a 12-volt on-off cheap test light from Napa. Ground one end, put the other end on the distributor side of the coil. Ignition on, spin it over. That light should wink on and off. And it's showing you that when the points are closed, the light goes off. When the points open, the light comes back on again because electricity takes the path of least resistance, and it's going to go through the points if the points are closed. So that should wink on and off, and that'll tell you right away if there's a problem with the low tension circuit. So if it's not that, it's probably the coil. I never used to believe that coils failed, but I've talked to so many people now who say, "Oh my, I can't touch my coil. It's like 200 degrees." And it's like, well, it sounds like it's getting too hot to work. Who did I talk to this past weekend who said that their coil was mounted vertically and he shook it, and when he went around right-hand corners, the car failed. So unusual. So I'm going to use my mute all button again here just for a minute, just to get it. All right. Okay. So
I have an interesting one, John.
Yeah.
It involves you. My friend Dean was going, it was a show in maybe Eastern Pennsylvania, might have been Wilkes-Barre or something. He was more than halfway to the show and he hit something really hard. His car shut off. He couldn't start it. So he actually had it towed. He said, well, John's going to be there. And you just reached under the dash, pushed the button, and it was he had no idea about that safety switch.
The impact
sort of laughed at him.
Switch 77 through 80. I never mentioned that tonight in my introduction. So if you hit a stone wall at more than 3 miles an hour or something or other, the impact switch pops and that shuts power off to the overdrive, the GCSA circuit, but most importantly, the fuel pump. So the fuel pump can't keep tick, tick, tick while you're upside down in the car when it's on fire. So anyway, that's we used to see a lot of extra wires run it from underneath the bonnet. It's like we just got to find a hot spot and take it back to the coil, or to take it back to the fuel pump. But in fact, it was the impact switch, which is either cylindrical or square. It's above the driver's right hand knee, behind the speedometer, up against the inside, the cockpit side of the firewall, and it's just got a little tiny button on the top, and I don't know, you push it down, you flick it up, one or the other. So, and yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, he was a little irritated with himself that he paid for a tow all the way, but he learned it'll never happen again.
Yep. Yep.
Had that happen to Carol coming back from a show one time, hit a bump, shut the car off right then and there. That's what it was.
That's a pretty unusual. You have to be pretty sensitive switch, or you have to hit something pretty hard. Speaking
We
of
hit something pretty hard. It was a railroad crossing that didn't appear to be
Oh.
rough, and it was.
Okay. The I've had more than one customer who's hit something pretty big in the pavement and had the radiator fan go right into the radiator. And of course, once the fan touches the radiator, then the fan blades curl towards the radiator, and oh my gosh, it's just catastrophic. Right, you're off the road right there. So
Another subtle one, John, on the ignition. A couple times, and it happened coming back from Oregon in the MGA. The points follower will tend to wear, and it may depend on the rotor, the shaft on the distributor, and the points just close down, and things don't work.
So when that happens, it doesn't happen all at once. And as the dwell is the points open less and less and less and less, the dwell goes from 60 up to 90. 90 is all the way closed. And during that time, for every degree of dwell that you've got, you lose a degree of timing, or maybe it's 2 to 1. And you usually get warning, like it's harder to start, it doesn't have enough power because the timing goes so far wrong. But when you're doing what, 300, 500 miles a day, that's maybe you don't notice it.
John?
Yes, George.
I ran into a problem with ignition again some time ago. It was on an MGA, but it's, a points ignition, the same thing. But what happened was I'd start the car and I'd get about a half a block down the road and it'd quit, just die. And I'd always get it back. If I let it set like 5 minutes, it'd start right back up again. Wasn't fuel. I had plenty of fuel. So I fiddle around with that thing for better part of a day, day and a half, or maybe even 2 days, trying to figure out what it was. And what it turned out to be was, as that engine warmed up, the pivot point on the points, where it sits on the post,
Yep.
would heat up and it would freeze in the open position.
Okay. This is early. This is one of the really early sets of points where
No. Yeah, well, yeah, it has the post.
Yeah.
But it's a set of points. It was all new points. I just bought them.
Yeah, yep. The hole in the points is just a little too small.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It was. And the other thing I like to think about too is when people are having ignition or think they're having ignition trouble, I always carry a jumper cable with me, just a little 2 or 3 foot, patch cable, with alligator
Yes.
clip on. I just stick it on a hot source and stick it on the point or on the coil.
Sure.
And if it fires up, then I know I got a problem somewhere else, but I can get home.
Yep. Between a test lead and a test light.
Yep.
Just that. You can solve most electrical problems.
Yeah, I always carry one with me now. So thanks, John.
Interesting.
So,
John?
John, years ago, I had a Datsun pickup truck and driving it home from college, and the dwell was going. And it's because there was not any grease in the distributor. And so the points were wearing down, the gap slowly over time, and it was losing power. Fortunately, back in those days, for mechanics on the side of the road, and being a kid, I didn't know that. And he, diagnosed it, and he got me home by making the, lubricating and making the proper adjustments. But that's one thing too. You just got to make sure you put that grease in every time you have your points changed.
Absolutely, absolutely. The later distributors, the 45D distributors that replaced the 25Ds, had on the points. They've got this little cotton pad, and you're supposed to drip oil on that, and it's supposed to keep oil on the rod. It's kind of cool. But yeah, that's I use red grease number 2, and I just take a little tiny bit on my finger and I put it on the cam, and then spin it in the correct direction, and you get just a little tiny bit of a buildup, maybe the thickness of the lead out of a lead pencil on the front of that cam rider, whatever you want to call it, cam follower, and that seems to provide plenty of lubrication. Any more grease than that, and it'll spatter out, and then it gets on the inside of the cap and hastens cap rotor or point failure. Yep.
Yeah, but it was very noticeable to see how the power was dropping, driving down
Yes.
a highway
Yep.
and late at night, and fortunately going to a truck stop and having that mechanic diagnose it. Otherwise, I don't know where I would have been.
Yep. Yep.
You did
Okay.
mention
Another
starters.
one that I've seen on a club member's car on one of our drives, he failed, was off the side of the road, replaced the rotor, got a couple 100 feet, quit again, pulled the cap, the rotor was broken. Replaced the rotor, went another couple 100 feet, rotor was broken. I got in there fooling around, and I realized his distributor shaft would wiggle about a quarter of an inch.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
And it was just throwing it out so far that it was hitting the cap and breaking the rotors. Fortunately, he pulled another distributor out of his boot, and we were on our way again.
There we go. Nothing like a fresh distributor. Yep.
John, have you seen distributor wear issues that look for eccentricity in the shaft like that commonly?
No, no, no. What Terry described is almost a one-off. Where it was so bad that it would break the cap. Now, if you're looking at the firing angle, 90, 0, 90, 180, 270. Oh my gosh, you put that on one with a wobbly shaft on a distributor machine, you dial it in at 0, and you get, 87 and, 185 and 268, just all over the place.
Dances all over the place.
It does. And the goal, of course, is to have each cylinder work exactly the same as the other in succession. So that's why rebuilt distributors are so important. So, yeah.
Hey, John.
Richard Pittenger.
Yeah, hi, John.
Hi.
I've got an off the road situation I'd like to run by you.
Sure.
It's on my 80B. The morning of July 4th, my grandson and I were planning to drive in the local July 4th parade. Very mild, pleasant morning, 8 o'clock, pulled it out of the garage. Everything seemed great. The parade the lineup was about 3 miles from home, so very short distance. I got about a mile from home, 30 mile an hour, third gear, and the thing just shut off. And then it restarted without me doing anything. So I continued on my way, kind of shaking my head. Never happened before. Got to another half mile or so with a stoplight, came to a stop, idling fine at the stop, pulled away, accelerated on Main Street about 35 mile an hour, and again in third gear, and it shut off again. So I coasted into a bank parking lot, sat there, tried to start it, turned the key, and I got nothing. Would not turn over.
Okay.
Or anything. I had lights, I had turn signals, fairly fresh battery, and it just sit there. So I raise the hood, and I'm looking under the hood. I can't really see any real obvious thing wrong with it. So I'm thinking, well, the parade is probably not going to happen. Thinking about how I'm going to get the thing about a mile back home at that point. And so after about, I don't know, 2 or 3 times turning the key and everything, maybe sitting there 15 minutes, turned the key and it took right off. So I called my family that was waiting for me at the start of the parade. I said, hey, this is what happened. I said, I think since it's running, I probably just ought to go home and forget the parade. So I got about halfway on home then, and it was running fine. So I decided, oh, what the heck? I'm going to turn around and go back to the parade. What's the worst that can happen? And we did, and it ran fine through the parade. You know how slow parades are. It was a pretty warm day at that point. Didn't overheat or nothing. The cooling fan didn't even come on. And no issue at all the way home. And so we were leaving on vacation right after that. So I've only driven it since once, about 3 miles to my storage unit. And it was fine that time too. So
Well, the fact that it was killing is sort of one thing, but the fact that it wouldn't start, wouldn't restart, wouldn't spin over, that's kind of weird. So put that all together, and can you put that, can you put that all together? So first thing I would do is service the whole electrical system, which means pull the clamps off the battery, clean the battery post, clean the ground strap, go to the starter motor, pull the nut off that, pull all the wires off the cable, the main battery cable, big around as your little finger. Take that off. There's a nut underneath that. Tighten that up, 13 millimeter nut, and tighten that up and put everything back on. Put it all back together, and then check it out some more. That would be my first step. Because it sounds like an electrical failure, but yeah, I don't know. So it could be a fuel pump, but why wouldn't it restart? That to couple that with it, that's the weird thing. So I do that first, Richard. Try that, and give me a call in a couple of days and let me know how once you're back onto it and everything. So
okay, well, I got to kind of make it happen again, I guess, but that's
well,
a good thought on cleaning up the terminals.
Do the electrical service
I
first.
know the battery is fine, I
Well, you don't know the battery may be okay, but I'm talking about the clamps. I'm talking about the ground strap that goes.
well, I mean all
Yeah.
the terminals, they're cleaning everything
Yeah,
around the
I
battery.
want them tight. I take them off,
Yeah.
clean them, put them back on again. Literally, I mean, do that. Service it. Take it all apart, put it all back together, especially the nut on the starter motor. So,
Uh,
and then try it again and call me.
on
Call me anytime and I'll work with you. So,
okay.
okay,
Well,
Hey,
thank you
John.
very much.
yeah,
John.
yes,
Sandy Eisenberg from
yeah.
Florida. About a week ago, I was on my way to the gym, and all of a sudden, the car just stopped. Pulled it over to the side, pushed it over to the side actually, and found that the distributor was actually loose, completely loose.
Okay. All right. We're back to whoever it was, that Judd who said, hey, check all the bolts before you drive it. But who checks their distributor clamping bolt? Yeah. Okay.
No, never had an inclination to do that. Tighten it up, no problem. And now I have a problem with that. I have dual SUs. It's idling at 1500 RPM, and we cleaned took the
So the
button was-
so the idle jumped when you put the distributor back in.
no, the idle. Well, everything went well. A couple of days later, the idle is at 1500, and I don't know. I mean, it runs good, starts, stops,
Okay.
doesn't diesel.
So get the timing checked. You got to get a timing light. You have to check the timing. 32 before at full mechanical advance vacuum disconnected. So you rev the shit out of it and put the timing light on it and make sure that you get no more than 32 degrees advance vacuum disconnected. After that, you just adjust the carburetors. But you can increase the idle by continuing to turn the distributor clockwise because it makes it idle more efficiently, but it doesn't make it run well at higher speeds. So you have to make sure that timing number is critical, 32 degrees. So
John,
May I offer an
John,
insight?
Bob Moore, yeah.
take your pick. Okay. Yeah, I just ran into a B with that sort of an issue with the HIF fours on it,
Yeah.
and the idle would was high, and before I even got there, all of the idle screws, even the choke screws, were backed out to falling out of the linkages,
Okay.
and the idle was just high, and I couldn't figure it out. But I knew I had to do these carburetors probably hadn't been opened up since the car was new. It was a 72. Um, so I got to Joe Curto and ordered the kits. And he said, "Oh, that idle situation. Um, it's those poppet valves in the butterflies. You've got one or another or both that have given up the ghost, and they open up at way too low a vacuum, and the thing will not lose idle. So it just stays up there."
That happens, not just on its own, but that happens when the air cleaners catch on fire. How how could what? How could the air cleaners catch on fire? But when you're starting the car up and it's spinning, or it's timed wrong or something or other, you're driving along and you can feel the car shakes and it goes. Every time it does that, it shoots flame back out of the carburetor into the air cleaner. And once in a blue moon, it'll catch the air cleaner on fire. And I mean, that thing incinerates in a flash. And you'd never know the fire's all contained. But the heat from the fire ruins the spring tension, and those overrun valves, 1968 through 1980, will fall open. Yes. Yeah, but that'd be a weird thing to have happen.
It was, yeah, I've never seen it before, but it was indicated.
Yeah.
Finally looking down the throats of the carburetors at the butterflies. Yeah, one of them had,
One of them was dangling open.
steady coils running all the way up. One of them had all the coils kind of limp down at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah,
And it also had the solder at the top where they set that blow off. Just it wasn't tinned onto the screw anymore. It was just like a donut around the screw.
Can I offer an insight? I had a problem with the 1500 idling issue that I
1500
saw.
MGA midget.
I've got a midget, a 1976 midget, and I lost one of the tower nuts on my manifolds, and I had a vacuum leak. And when I started the car cold, it was fine. When I ran it to temperature, it would idle at 1500.
Sure.
When I replaced the tower nut and the stud had actually also come out, I solved that problem.
There
So
could be a vacuum leak.
yeah, the vacuum leak is whenever you've got a high idle, the easiest, cheapest thing to do first after backing off the throttle screws is to spray the whole area, the shafts, between the manifold and the intake, in between the head and the manifold, the heat shield, and spacer blocks, whatever's in there. Spray it with that carburetor cleaner, and if you can get any kind of a rise, noticeable rise, you can always make it change. It either goes faster or slower depending on how well it's tuned and what kind of carburetor cleaner you're using. But if you can effect a change in RPM that's relatively dramatic, I mean 50 RPM, you're going to come up with that if you spray around the throttle shafts. Even brand new ones leak a little bit. But something dramatic, then two things might be going on. Air might be going through there and holding the idle up. The other one is every time the throttle disc closes, it closes in a different spot. So it's not really ever shutting down all the way. But we started off talking about cars that were just killing. So anyway, we'll go back. Oh, it's 8:05, so it's time for me to go over and take a look at the chat. But do we have anybody else with an unusual off the road, failure?
Yeah, John.
Yeah,
Rudy.
little bit of an issue.
Rudy.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
going
buddy. So I have a real strange one. I don't know that anyone's ever come across it. I was very young. I had my MGA for years and years and years. Driving home down Imperial Highway and cruising along. I do a shift. Then all of a sudden I get a spin. I hear a clunk, and the engine just revved like crazy. I said, "What the hell?" So I let it roll over to the side, look under the hood. My transmission had separated from the engine. It just,
Okay.
there was like an inch, 3/4 of an inch space.
I would have,
So,
if you'd been on the
so it's just,
phone, I never would have proposed that as a possible, as a
but
possible
you,
fault.
you and me both. I couldn't believe it. So young and stupid, I think, well, what can I do? So I look in the trunk, found a bolt, stole a bolt from the starter, climbed in there. I was able to press the tranny back to the motor,
Sure.
jumped in, put it in gear. I drove home. I
Okay.
drove home like that.
All right.
Fixed
That's
it on the
cool.
weekend.
That's a
Yep,
good,
it was crazy,
I'll try not
but
to
it happened.
forget that one. That's
I had
pretty
a
Scouts honor.
subtle one with the Princess, John, just before the show. I hadn't
Yeah.
had the Princess very long, and it was having an issue where I could drive it about 10 minutes. It'd start with a miss, and then a miss, and it was like it was running on one carburetor. I chased everything in that car, and eventually it actually got to one point where it did put me on the side of the road. I pulled the fuel line, the pump is clicking, fuel's coming out of the line. But eventually I got to thinking, well, the fuel flow maybe wasn't quite what it should have been. Bottom line, when the fuel pump was getting hot, the points must have been shutting down and the fuel flow was backing off. And it backed off to the point where it wouldn't run. I replaced the fuel pump, went to Crystal Lake and back, not a single hiccup.
So
But it was
if the fuel pump gets hot most of our cars, we can't, you're off the road, you're just looking for stuff. What could be wrong? You put your hand around the fuel pump. If it is hot, it means it's been trying to inhale and can't. So the solenoid remains hot, and the magnet's trying to get pulled, but it can't because it can't pull any fuel into the pump because there's a blockage in the fuel tank or the screen in the pump is filled up, something like that. I had one time where we're off the road and I just looking, grabbing stuff, grab the fuel pump like to burn my hand. It's a TD, and it turned out that all that stuff that you used to put on the inside of the TD fuel tanks had come off in sheets, and it plugged up the outlet for the tank, and the
So
pump was trying to
apparently
inhale.
no blockage. I think the
Unless it's in the
pump
pump
was just
itself.
failing. I replaced the pump and did nothing else,
Nice.
and it was perfect. So yeah, you never know.
to supplement that, John, and I've got it over here.
Don't we replace points on these pumps anymore? And pump points and diaphragm, and you got a new pump.
Not clean the point. Just clean the point. The diaphragm's all right. Just clean the points. Just take the points out, scratch them on some paper, get them nice and clean again, put them together, make sure that one point isn't taking all the load and that both points are working together. I never changed the diaphragm. I rebuild pumps a lot. So,
We used to have matchbooks. You could use the striking strip to do that.
yeah, well, that's what are those the emery boards that women use for the nails? But those are too thick, and besides, you can't get access into the pump. You got to take the points. The top blade comes off real easily, but the bottom one you got to unscrew the diaphragm from the pump to get that the rollover, the bottom part of the points out to scratch those up. But yeah.
And for the other part of the story, there's my threadless knockoff too. There in the picture.
Thank you. It's hard to tell that it doesn't have threads there, but the gold part is all brass. It doesn't have threads. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Had an embarrassing one, well, not for us, but we were at the Fort Meigs last year. Some guy had his young guy had his play his radio all day, and then the car won't start. So I said, well, how are the battery terminal? Oh, the battery terminals look good. So two other guys and myself start pushing it. I'm too old to be pushing cars. and I had my face over to the left of the fender, so I didn't face plant if it started. Did not start. Push it back in the slot, and Gloria walked over to the guy, handed him a piece of sandpaper, says, "Clean your terminals." He cleaned the terminals, and the car was fine. I think they were a little embarrassed.
That's pretty good. Bob Connell we talked about push start. He had a customer, and for whatever reason, the customer picked up the car and the starter motor didn't work, or the battery's low, or something. Bob says, "Well, here, I'll push you," and he gets him pushed partway down the driveway. Bob slips, falls, gets his hand caught behind the overrider. Where guy's running, revs it up, dragging Bob behind him. Yeah, there's a lot of good stories out there in the MG universe. I'm going to switch over now and I'm going to start reading the chat stuff. So anyway, Mike Baldwin says, John, got a roadside failure repair story with just a minute. There's so much stuff in the way here. I can't read this well. I don't know why. Just a minute. I'm trying here with a twist. Okay. Let me know when you get to fuel pumps anyway, I can't read this. I'm terribly sorry. Just a moment.
It's fuel pump stories.
I got it now. Yeah. Let me know when you get to the fuel pump stories, or just ask me. So here I am, Mike.
All right, good deal. This is a fuel pump story from a couple of years ago. Coming back from a show, my wife and I had been to a British car show. We're rolling down the interstate. We're about 2 miles from home, and and it picked up again, and then that was it, and off to the side of the road we get. The car did not have the original SU pump on it. It had one of the German knockoffs from back in the day. That
Harting, Harting, yeah.
Exactly. And so I got around the boot of the car and grabbed a screwdriver. Told my wife, I said, "Don't open the door and bash me in the head, or you may hear some noises." I reached down there, tapped the fuel pump a couple of times. Had not get a problem before, but I figured let's give it a try. Tapped it a couple of times. I said, "Make sure it's in neutral since we don't have a safety switch," and hit the key. Hits the key, it starts. I go back, put the screwdriver in the boot, go around, open the door, get in. She's got this amazed look on her face. How did I know to do that? I said, "Well, while you're reading murder mysteries, I'm reading MG magazines and forums." But this is where the twist comes. About the time I got ready to get in the car, this black SUV comes gliding right by me, pulls over in front of me. I thought, was it highway patrol or something? No. And this person waves at me and sticks her head out. I was walking up the SUV and see somebody I knew. Yeah, it was somebody I knew. It was the local undertaker. And he pulled over to one side and he said, "You need any help, Mike?" I said, "No, I think I'm good." I look over, he's got a box of donuts beside him in the seat. And he says, "Well," I said, "You want me to follow you home, make sure you get home okay?" I said, "Oh, okay," because the funeral home's 2 blocks from our house. So when you have a fuel pump die and the undertaker comes by, now we got it going again. And I changed the pump, put a new SU pump on it with the electronic rather than the points about 5 years ago, 3 years ago. It's fine. No problem. Drove it all weekend. But whenever you have a fuel pump die and the undertaker comes by cruising for business, that has a bad connotation.
Okay. Yep, absolutely. Okay, Judd asked me up about putting a fuel filter between the tank and the fuel pump and how I know. Well, I already know, everybody knows. But yeah, the only problem, Judd, putting putting that fuel filter between the tank and the pump is that when you do anything down there, the gasoline gets on the underside of your arm and runs right into your armpit. Oh man. So
and the thing is, our cars don't need that fuel filter. You've got a filter in the pump, you got a filter in each carburetor, you got a filter in the tank. Well, most of the filters in the tank are probably rotted and gone, but you've got 4 filters, and somebody in MG decided that if a particle was small enough to go through those screens, it didn't matter.
You don't need a
They still
filter
don't.
on the SUs. The junk we get out of a tank typically will blow right through.
Typically, now and then it sticks the needle and seat open.
Needle and seat, it'll
Yep,
flood a little.
but if you're going to put a fuel filter on the car, you put it between the fuel feed and the carburetors right up front so you can see it. Change it. Always buy a clear one. So why would you buy one you can't see through? So All right, Marty's got some
Something that big through. If you suck something that big through, it didn't go through the filter.
Was that an air filter bolt?
No, that's it's an air filter bolt. Went right down the throat of the carburetor.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Bill Thornton, you forgot me. Anyway, Bill, I didn't mean to forget you. Apparently that was when I was reading all the people who have donated. So, Bill, I certainly didn't mean to forget you.
Well, I forgive you.
Okay, this time, but
This time.
but better not happen again. Ed, driving to a car show in Bath, Maine, I smelled gas, pulled over, lifted the bonnet, saw gas spilling out of the forward HIF. Yup. I looked at the location where the gas was leaking and saw that the screw that holds the flow. Oh, you already told us about that.
Yeah, we covered that, John.
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Hey. Yep. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. In the email, let's see. This is MKV 130. In the email, you mentioned driving the MG without a clutch. Could you explain? Sure. You don't need the clutch. It's awfully handy to have the clutch. It gives you so much more control. But start the car up, you get it warm, you get it warm, and then I don't know what. You got to put it in reverse and start it in reverse. It goes up. You put your foot hard enough on the brake, it'll kill the engine. You're not going to run into your neighbor's house across the street. And then you point the car down the road, put it in second gear, start it up. The car goes and then starts up and starts going. And you can shift from second to third pretty easily. Changing from third to second without a clutch, oh boy, you got to be really skilled so it doesn't grind real badly. But you can change up, and then when you get to the you get to the stop sign or stoplight, you got to turn the car off. I mean, you just do it. Then you put it in second gear and start it in gear again. And if you're in traffic, oh my gosh! And if you're in a town 100 miles away from your home and you got to get it home and you got a U.S. highway or an interstate or something, you don't need a clutch there. You're going to be in fourth gear the whole time. The only time you need a clutch is when you get a stop sign or stoplight. So yeah, you can. I've driven lots of customers' cars without a clutch. So
my father taught me how to upshift and downshift without a clutch many years ago. And thinking about the job of replacing a clutch in an MG, I shift without a clutch a lot because I hate that job. And
okay, all right.
I don't have a problem.
So it just as a reminder to everybody, the only three times that your foot should three reasons your foot should be on the clutch is when you're taking off or changing gears. That's it. Unless you want to use it when you're going into overdrive, which is unnecessary. So there's only two reasons. You start at neutral, idle at neutral, stoplight, stop sign, stop start traffic. Put your car in neutral, take your foot off the clutch, let it freewheel. The longer you have your foot on the clutch pedal, the sooner you need a throwout bearing, all of which are being supplied right now oversized, so they don't fit. But that'll be sorted out. Anyway, extend the life of your throwout bearing. Yep. So let's see, Marty. That's Marty's note. Here, Brad Schwartz. Do you recommend cleaning and sealing an MGA gas tank or replacing it? Replace it. Just replace it. If you can take it to a radiator shop, if you can find a radiator shop that'll work on your gas tank, and they're gonna, I don't know, etch the inside of it with acid or something like that. Oh, maybe paint up the outside real well, but I just buy a new tank. And I don't know who sells the better tanks. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you got this for an MGA. I mean, you got Cecilia at Scarborough, and you got Moss, and then you got a couple places overseas, NTG or Lamora. But anytime you start to move anything that bulky by yourself, you're paying for postage. It'll chew you up. So,
but the refinishing is probably much more expensive, I would imagine.
I don't know. I don't. Some of the tanks are stainless. You can't. The only thing that goes wrong is if somebody missed a weld, and you just don't know until you get it all in place. And then draw 6 gallons out of it, and all of a sudden, you're out of gas. And it's like, well, how can you be out of gas? Because there's an air leak. It's something wrong. Once in a blue moon that happens with a new tank, just does. Probably won't be you, but I'd get a new tank.
The cost of boiling them out is just as much as buying a new tank.
Okay.
Except for a TD.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Except for a TD. Who did I talk to? Dudley in Augusta, Georgia, and they sent theirs out to have it. And the guy said, "Hey, this is nuts. I can't do this." So they ordered a brand new tank, I think from NTG in Ipswich, England, and it never arrived. It might even had a signed thing that said it had arrived, but they never got it. And NTG sent them another tank. No questions asked. Well, I must ask a lot of questions, but they didn't argue with him too much about it. Sent him a new tank, but of course you got to have it painted. If you have it boiled out, you have to have it painted. So yeah, those are and they don't fit. The new ones don't fit. You got to fiddle with them. So, but the MGA and MGB tanks fit underneath, so those are okay. MGC, here we go. Dean Hickenlooper, MGC cylinder head, manifold stud thread size. 3/8 24 or 7/16 20. I know those aren't 7/16, are they? They're just
Well, they were it was 3/8
24.
24, and the bolt goes in real easy into the head. And the studs going, but I was just wanted to clean them up, and I'm running a tap in there, and it felt like, are those imperial threads? I felt like I was cutting new threads.
Sometimes depending on the die or the tap that you get, it takes off too much. I remember doing a T-type once, and those are all metric, and I dutifully chased all the threads, and I'm going to put the main studs in, and they're screwed halfway in, and there's a little bit of a wobble to them. It's like, whoa, I got way too much meat off here. I mean, I tightened them up, and they were just fine, but
Well,
sometimes
that's kind of what I thought. And another quick note on breaking down on the highway back from GT50. My MGA broke down, and we had it on my buddy's trailer. I was driving his MGB, and we'd go about 2 hours, and it would stall out, and I'd pull over. I checked the voltage, 11.4 should be enough to turn over the motor and run. Then we switched batteries with my A back up to 12.5 volts, started right up, went another 2 hours and stalled again. We pulled over. We had to put the jumpers on it from the truck onto the battery, get it up to 12.5. It would start up again, and we could go 22 miles.
Electronic ignition?
It's a 79 MGB with the original Lucas electronic ignition.
So some of those electronic ignitions, just like radios, are really voltage sensitive. You fall below a threshold, and it doesn't run bad. It just doesn't run. Like a radio, a radio in an MGB, a modern radio, you get below, I don't know, 11.2
Right.
volts or 10.8 volts or something. It just shuts off. It doesn't fade away. It just shuts off.
We couldn't even get the motor to turn over
Oh,
at
geez.
11.4. It was weird. We got a new alternator, checked all the connections, changed out the distributor, runs fine now.
So it was one of those things.
I guess so. Thank you.
Okay, nice to see you last week. Ben Andrews, GHF, General Hardware Fastener, 262 nuts are supposed to be there. So anyway, GHF, man, you're speaking factory numbers here. So Joe Gresh, I've got a 52D TD that has a rattle, like a chain rattling or someone shaking a bottle of broken glass. It seems like it's coming from the rear passenger side. The rattling increases with acceleration and slows when I decelerate. So, Joe, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
All
And
right,
it's a
so
subtle rattle.
all right, but it does. Is it just during acceleration and deceleration, or just when you're going faster and slower?
Faster and slower.
Okay, all right.
It's only when I'm moving probably around above 20 miles an hour.
All right. So it could, it could be a bunch of stuff. So you can, once the car's off the road and you jack it up a little bit so you can start to get underneath it and you grab the rear wheel, you shake it. Does it shake? Is it something loose? You grab the shock link between the shock absorber and the leaf spring, shake it. Take some of the tension off the spring by putting your trolley jack underneath the spring once the car is up on jack stands and begin to lift the axle up. Take that tension off the rear axle and shake the shock. Take some wrenches. That's probably what 3/8 British back there. Those bolts back there. Tighten those up. You can take the wooden end of a hammer. You can bang it against the backing plate. It could be, it could be something. It could be something broken in the box that holds the side curtains. There could be two pieces of broken glass in there. Who knows? You just have
Yeah,
to.
I got under there and nothing's obvious. The mechanic had it up on a lift and he shook a bunch of stuff. He said nothing obvious.
Huh.
He took it for a test drive and he couldn't really hear it. But
I've had customers like that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to rule out anything that's going to be horrible like it.
Sometimes it's like we just got to wait for it to get worse so you can find out what it is. That's a sort of a crummy. All the time you're creeped. How much should I drive my car? But geez, if a guy's gone in there with that a mechanic and he's just looking, you're happy to pay him to fix whatever he finds and he can't find it. He's looked pretty hard.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've had the car now 2 years and it seems like it hasn't really changed much in terms of intensity.
Okay. It could be the hubcap. The hubcap comes loose on the wheel.
Oh no, I've had those off and drove it.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Convertible top frame, maybe.
Judd wants to. He drives a TD. What's up, Judd?
Well, I just when I put the top up, which is extremely rare right now, I don't even have the frame attached to the car. I hear noises that I've never heard.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if Joe is hearing this with the top up, which amplifies every single noise and makes.
Yeah, I do drive it with the top up the majority of the time.
Okay. So there you go, Joe. All you do is put the top down and the noise is gone.
Goes away, huh?
As younger kids, we would put rocks in our buddies' hubcaps, just
for
something to do,
Yep. That only shows up at real low speed, but it makes a real racket. Yep.
Well, my neighbor owns a Triumph, so he might have done that to me.
Okay, right. Okay.
Could it be anything inside the brake drum?
That's why. Well, his mechanic was.
Yeah, they looked at the brakes and everything, and in fact, they redid the brakes, and those were fine.
Sounds like the linkage on the parking brake.
That's just cable, but hey, it's something. It's something. If you can hear it, it's something. Absolutely. So.
Okay, but I can rule out a bearing or anything like that, right? Differential.
Oh well, I wouldn't. If it hasn't changed in 2 years, and if your mechanic checked the oil of the diff while he was there, geez, I'd drive it. So.
Okay.
Unless I knew exactly what the noise was and went, oh, that's what it is. But it's so hard. It's so hard to describe noises. You don't want to do it with a couple hundred people listening. But if you want to call me tomorrow and try to duplicate the noise that it's making, I might, because I wrote an article a long time ago now, zizzes, tunks, and dings or something or other. And oh my gosh.
I linked it. It's in there.
All right. Thank you, Marty.
I'll see if I can record it.
Doesn't work. You can try, but it's the Martini effect or something. It does not work. But I'd be happy to listen and see. So,
okay.
In my experience, if it sounds like it's coming from the right rear, it's probably coming from the left front.
And Alan's a musician. He's all about ears. So,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Okay. So we got Dean Seaweed here. You suggest using an MGB timing chain cover and pulley for an A. Timing mark more accessible. What years to look for? Dean, that is 1972 when they put the timing marks up there through 1974. It isn't a very long run. 75 through 80, those are fine too, but the front pulley's massively larger and very well, I don't even know if it would fit into the MGA with the frame and the rack and I don't even know if it would fit. But 72 through 74, that's what I have on my car. And you can take any pulley, any harmonic pulley, any pulley, and make it fit the timing marks.
I can use my old pulley. I can use the old pulley from the A.
Sure.
Just
Sure,
okay.
but you'd have to put a new mark on it.
Mark on it.
You just have to accept that, the closest you can get is within a couple degrees. You just can't do it perfectly. Not
Gotcha.
at home, not without taking the head off, not without, and that's almost crazy town stuff. So, just for this, if you're, I tell everybody 32 degrees, because the difference between 32 degrees full advance and 27 full advance, 5 horsepower on an MGB. Out of how many horsepower? 60. It's a lot, almost 10%. So timing's critical, but you can only get it so close. So
I got another.
John, don't they need the that little disc that is behind the timing cover?
yeah, you have to change the disc behind the timing cover, also the thrower, the oil thrower. Yeah, let's see here. I've got just a minute. I gotta go to participants. Where's my mute all button right here? I'm gonna mute everybody just for a second. There we go. Okay, I had some background noise. Now I'm going to get rid there we go. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
John, one
So,
other thing.
yes.
I've got okay. I've used classic tube for my brake lines and the fuel lines.
Okay.
I ran into an issue with classic tube with the line coming from the fuel tank to the fuel pump. They've got the fittings swapped.
Oh my
You've got a
gosh.
3/8 from the tank. They've got it set up for the fuel pump. Well, Cliff at Classic Tube said, their prints show it that way. They can't be selling too many because it would seem that all the A's had the.
It could be. It could be the guy that hooked it up that day did it.
That's what I thought. That's what he. That's what
I mean.
But the problem that I have now is that they got a new supplier.
Okay.
So it's on back order.
Can you unsweat those and sweat them in on?
Well, they did. They said they didn't. I didn't want to do it in case it leaked, and they said they didn't want to do it. They're just going to replace it, but it's going to take about 4 weeks before they can get a supplier to.
If it's sweat soldered is the easiest kind of soldering to do. Read about it. Get somebody to help you. If the end's unsoldered, just pull them off and put them on. Saves you time. Saves them money. So,
yeah, well, I just don't want it to leak. Hey, the other thing,
it won't. A good sweat soldered won't. So
okay, the shocks.
All those plumbers that did all that copper piping on the inside of thousands, millions of houses, those don't leak. It's a real easy joint to solder.
Have you ever used a guy from Wisconsin for shocks?
Always, Peter Caldwell.
Okay.
Worldwide Imports, Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay, because he's a lot cheaper than Apple.
And I've always used Peter Caldwell. Yep.
Okay.
Great guy. Yep.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So Rebecca Schuster says ethanol blend on a really hot day, 79 MGB. That little asbestos heat shield is just not enough. No, it is not. When the catalytic converter is right below the carb, grab a cold drink or wait and find pure gas. Well, pure gas will help. If you still have an air pump on your car, if you remove that, then the catalytic converter doesn't work and it doesn't get hotter than the rest of the exhaust. There were test pipes. Last one I bought was the last one that somebody had a long time ago. To replace the catalytic converter, In 1975, on the MGBs, the federal spec did not have a catalytic converter and had a single pipe that ran right from the manifold down to the exhaust. We used to have a bunch of those. Walker used to make them. We ordered them, and then when they dropped them out, we started having them made by a muffler place. So anyway, there's a couple ways around that, but the pure gas is probably the easier one, unless the cold drink is fascinating.
Yeah, it's Rebecca has a little voice, by the way. Yeah, she hijacks my account. This is actually Al.
That
So
I,
yeah.
I figured it probably would, but every now and then we've got a woman here. So
Yeah, the thing did die out. I mean, it coming back from the British Car Show in Hudson, Ohio, and
okay,
about 90 degrees that day, and a couple of made it out there fine. And I found that the ethanol gas kind of heats off there. And yes, I do still have the air pump on there. I've tried to keep it as original as possible.
well, some people, you can take the lines that come from the air pump, and you can just get a dowel and stick it down inside there. Then the
Right.
pump hisses because it's blowing off all that extra air.
Yeah, I might have to try that. But
Um,
you also gave me another thought with the canister. I mean, that might be a possibility too, that the charcoal canister might have a vapor problem.
Well, it might, but probably not. It's probably just the heat underneath there. And what can you do? I mean, it's down that little bit of the heat shield down there. If you want to keep it original, you can't put a bigger one down there. You know?
Yeah, well, I've got one on order from Moss. Moss has
Okay.
a
All right.
aluminum one, so we're gonna
Yeah.
try that. Just
Sure.
Make sure that you don't have that plastic plug in the bottom of your carburetor on
Yeah.
those Zenith carburetors.
Yeah, okay, I'll have a look at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
Thanks.
got 59 MGJ. Does the 53 TD starter take a shim when installing? No. Starter gear stays inside the bell housing and turns of the starter gear. Sounds like a Model A or a tractor in first gear. Um, um, so if no shims, is there a starter alignment? No, there shouldn't have to be any. So are you still on 59 MGJ?
Yes, I am, John.
Oh yeah, all right. So the what happens? You pull the starter motor and it stays engaged?
No, it's another gentleman's car that
Okay.
I know. And when we try to start the car, it's that starter gear stays right on that ring. And boy, it sounds like a Model A, like a tractor with the gear going on there. We've never started the car, but it's sticking in there.
Oh, well, that's the problem. As soon as the car starts, it kicks the starter bendix out. And so you'd only be enduring that noise just for the time that you're spinning the engine. So I don't think that there may not be a real problem there. So
Yeah, the friend of mine that's got the TD, he panics. So it's fun.
you cannot panic and be in a world like this.
Oh, John, you don't know how this guy is.
No, well, no, yeah, I've been in business. I've been in the business for over 50 years. I sure do know how some of them are. So
It's funny. It's funny. We're sitting over there. He pulled the distributor out and he turned the engine over, and I'm showing him how to time the engine.
Sure.
And I put the distributor back in, and I've moved it so it'd be number one facing that way. And he goes into a panic saying, no, it's got to be this way. This is the way it came out. And I said, no, not really. So I straightened him out on that, and we start with the spark plug wires. And he's got them numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and he thinks it goes to number 1 spark plug, number 2 spark plug. So I straightened him out on that. So I go to start, put the spark plugs on there, and lo and behold, my mind is not there, and I started putting them in for the order clockwise.
Yeah, well, that runs on two. Yeah.
Feel about that smart.
Yeah, so he's on triple panic by
Thank
now. Yeah. All right, Wayne. Wayne says I had my crankshaft break in half. So who's Wayne? Who's had his crankshaft break? That's a real unusual problem. Oh my gosh.
He's running down the road and about 50 miles an hour, and all of a sudden lost power and pulled aside, and that was it.
Now, what sheared off? The flywheel at the back end or what?
No, right in the middle of the crankshaft.
Oh my,
between
usually
the
it
bearings.
continues to run, but sounds like somebody's inside your engine with 5 pound hammers banging on the block.
It was noisy and
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
but the biggest problem with that was just finding another crankshaft
Yep.
and bearings for it at the time. It was back in the 1990s,
Okay.
1980s.
Yep. You could at that time you could have a brand new billet crank made for like $2,000. Of course, we had $2,000, but you could have them now. Even and now it's finding somebody who make a crankshaft just out of a chunk of steel, drill it and get it all correct and everything, and balance it and everything. It's the very few places, but there's lots of used TD engines around now. So. And Eric Van Noot said that happened to him on his TD also. And then Pat Garrity, who's got a lot of time in service, a lot of time in grade, working at the MG dealer. It says right at the front main journal by the counterweight. I've seen them break everywhere on T types. And Terry Loof said, Terry's got stuff other than an MG. My London taxi has a two-piece crank right now. Yeah.
It's got the little 4-cylinder diesel in it. It's
Oh
about
man.
midway in the crankshaft that's separated. 40 miles an hour, a big bang.
Oh yeah. Yep. So any of that kind of stuff that fell into my engine failure. I didn't talk about broken cranks. Those are so few and far between. Although here we've got some examples. So Penny Haas, John, for an MGA 1600, do you recommend grease or oil to lubricate the grease zerk on the upper U joint on the steering column? I know that it is oil for the steering rack gaiters. So I would put oil on that felt bushing. But the problem is if you put oil on that felt bushing at the top of the column, it'll swell and it'll grab that column and make the steering stiff. Better probably up there. I always use oil. I always use oil because those things get banged around so much anyway that the inside diameter ends up opening up. But you can make a case there for using graphite up there. And then if the rack and pinion has a grease zerk at the point the pinion enters the rack and pinion, that takes one pump of grease there. But then the rest of the rack, even though it's got a grease zerk on it, TD also takes oil. You fill it through the damper on the adjuster pack on the top. So
How do you correct that, John, with if you put that oil on that felt seal?
oh, you're done. You can't get oil off it. But you think yours is swollen up so it's stiff?
No, I've rebuilt my steering rack on my 59 and it's stiff like that. I'm just wondering, you sound like what you said, it could be the problem.
Well, if you got grease in the rack rather than oil, it's really sluggish, really sluggish. So you ought to be able to grab the wheel on your MGA when it's in place and just move it back and forth by hand. When the car's up in the air, it should roll back and forth real easily. And if you bring it full lock one way, push it really hard the other way, it ought to hit the other lock and come back about halfway. Just rolling, just free, nice and free.
Yeah, all I've got into it is no fluids or no grease whatsoever.
Oh yeah, well you got to get oil in there. Yep. Okay, let's see here. We got down to Bill Henley. Just a suggestion for a future Zoom meeting. Different convertible top materials, manufacturers, pros and cons. So yeah, we can talk. I don't talk about seats and interiors and carpets, and we should do that. Marty, jot that down. We'll come back to that at some point. I don't know an awful
In the
lot.
notes.
Yeah,
I caught it too.
Okay, I don't know a lot about that stuff. We have to get an expert on here. Robert says 1972 MGB 25D distributor dies when gets to normal temp when driving. Farts and pops when starting too. Just started this year. Wire inside distributor looks bare, no coating. Well, if the low tension lead wire that leads from the LT lead, the spade on the side, or the stud, if that wire is bare and it's touching ground, well, you're going to have all kinds of problems. But snapping, popping, banging, that's all indications of a bad condenser or a condenser that isn't tight. You can get that screw, that little tiny, tiny, tiny little Phillips screw. You can get it really tight, but the distributor still wobbles. You got to have an electrical connection there. So use an internal star washer in there. For electrics, you always use external stars. I don't know why. I'm used to using internal stars in different places on the MGB. And anyway, anything to take up just a little bit of room there. And then we had the one guy who said that his point stuck open some time ago, but his point stuck open. So that's a weird one. So all right. So here let's go on down and Steve Shupak. Oh, yep, thanks. Okay, let's see. Robert Davidson. I had the car stall after running over a small pothole downtown Grand Rapids. Sounds like the impact switch. You still on, Robert?
Yeah, it was not the impact switch.
Oh, all right. Okay. Pull a wire off the pump or something, or?
No, it turned out to be the electronic ignition, the original that was in there in a 77. I thought maybe a low tension lead just had come off from fatigue. It turned out to be the connector from that module that was mounted on the inside of the fender.
Okay.
And after fiddling around a little bit, I noticed it moved. I got back in the car, started right up, but 4 miles or so from home, and it failed 2 more times before I got home. The last time it failed, I was just driving on a smooth piece of pavement. It just, yeah. So that's been gone for a long time.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Anytime you hit something, hit a bump, there's a chance anything could happen. It could be that the brand new oil hose that goes to your brand new oil cooler, the one that the hose with that mesh on it, all of a sudden drops down and touches one of the leads on the distributor, and grounds it out. I mean, there's so many thousand things that they can happen. Bob Moore, John, with the HIF carbs, with the evap hoses to the carbon canister, do the carbs really care if those two little brass pipe ports, if they're capped? Oh my gosh, yes. Do not cap those on the carburetor. You don't have to cap the ones that go over to the charcoal canister. You can cap those. You cannot cap the ones that go on the carburetor, or you mess up your mixture big time. I had the weirdest one. Used to be back in the day when we had our summer parties. We'd have them on a Saturday, and then Sunday we'd open the shop, and people who are having problems running would bring the cars in. We'd fix them, and so they could get home on Sunday. I had a guy driving up from Ohio. And he said the whole way, he says, it's like I'm dragging a great big trailer behind me. I'm going into a headwind. I just can't get any power, especially the farther back off I get on the throttle, the worse it runs. Put my foot into it, it's all right, but I can't accelerate the whole time, not all the way from Cleveland to Grand Rapids. And he was traveling with a British Leyland mechanic, Dave Mack. And Dave says, I looked at the timing, I looked at that, and Dave gives me this big long list of stuff that he'd done. So I took the banjo bolt that held the banjo fitting in the dump tube on his MGA carburetors. I took that loose, pursed my lips around the banjo and blew through it, and one of those two tubes going to atmosphere, going underneath the car, was plugged. And we unplugged it. The car ran perfectly. And Dave Mack just shook his head and said, how in the world would you know to do that? I said, well, you told me you did everything else. I said, but I knew that that's something you had to do too. You just didn't say you'd done that. So I took a chance that that was it. So you have to have atmospheric pressure on the float bowls, on the gasoline in the float bowls. So, um, David's iPad. Oh, this is a long one here. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is a real long one. An engine loss of power during sustained cruising speeds, late Model B, with a evaporation system in place can occur if the system gets plugged. Absolutely, created in a vacuum. Absolutely, that can happen. Absolutely, it can. And anyway, and it ends up leaning out the mixture. So that's what David's iPad's talking about is that when you're if there's a vacuum in the charcoal canister. Well, we had one Pat Amarina, I think it was Pat in Chicago, Inca, maybe Snapdragon, maybe it was 1980, but I think it was a 79, 77 something. Inca yellow. B, when he take a right-hand turn, his car quit. Quit. Start right up instantly, run perfectly. So he took not a left-hand turn, not a stop, not a start, right-hand turn only, car quit. And I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that, and I took that hose that went from the bottom of the anti-run-on valve down to the frame and up by the coil and then up through the radiator diaphragm. Here's a hose with a low point in it. You cannot have a hose with a low point in it. Had a low point in it. I put my lips around the hose that came from the anti-run-on valve and blew as hard as I could. And out of the front of this, I think I said this last week too, out of the front of this thing came this great big slug of, I don't know, water and oil or gas, I don't know what it was, gasoline, something. And so right when he'd go around a right-hand turn, this stuff would get just in the correct place, stop the ventilation of the charcoal canisters. That in turn would put so much vacuum on top of the gasoline in the float bowls that the car would quit. And then of course when the car came to rest, it ran perfectly good again. So yeah, it's a real cheap trick. Anytime you're running and you've got the float bowls hooked to the charcoal canister and you've got some kind of running problem, any kind of running problem, take that line off that goes to the charcoal canister, take it off the carburetor, take it off the carburetors, and just try it again. It's cheap, easy. And if it makes it any difference, there's something wrong with the charcoal canister. So shouldn't make one iota of difference if that's hooked up or not. So let's see. Bill Thornton, I have an idiot story about the loss of forward motion of a 79B. Bill Thornton, you still on? You want to tell your story?
Yeah, I'm still on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, bought my car about 20 years ago. It's a little scruffy. And so over time I just did a few bits and pieces and I thought this car would look a lot nicer with chrome license plate frames and a Union Jack flag on and blah blah blah. So I bought all the bits from Moss and I took the license plate frame off and the mount and everything, cleaned everything up, put it all back together. Great, it looked fantastic. So I thought it was time for a drive. And I started it up, started fine. But at my garage, 50 yards down the road, it completely stopped, dead.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I went back over, pushed it all the way back to my garage, 50 yards uphill on my own. You know, that was tough.
Barefoot. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not quite. No. And anyway, I was going over everything that I'd done and I looked in the boot and there's a wire hanging there with a connection loop on the end, a connection lug. And I thought, I wonder if that's important. And it turns out it was a ground wire for the fuel pump. And so I just pumped all the fuel out of the carburetor just enough to get 50 yards down the road and it stopped. So that's just an
often told story.
Oh, really?
I was in the shop one time and the car's idling and I thought I saw the side markers wink. I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And I stood back and looked at it, and sure enough, about 20 seconds later, all the side markers and the license lights go. What the hell? It's because that terminal was loose and the fuel pump was finding its ground by going through the parking light circuit. It's just hey, weird stuff happen. Weird stuff happens when you don't have a ground. So
Yeah.
I've heard of that before. Absolutely.
Thanks.
So, but it's not so it's not an idiot story. It's happened to lots of people. So anyway, John Lind, any truth to the advice that head studs are too stretched to be reused, where the nuts can't be tightened by hand to the end of the threads? Well, yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, if are you still on, John? If you
Yes, I am.
get the
Yeah.
stud and you take the nut, but there's always rust and shit in the way. So,
Yeah.
if you use a thread chaser on that or a die, now some people say, "Oh God, don't use a die; it's a head stud." But if you use a die or a thread chaser, and it cleans the crap off, that's
Sure.
okay. But if the distance between the threads is spread, and oh my gosh, on T types. Those studs are I don't know anything about steel and quality of steel and their numbers associated with quality of steel. But those things stretch just horribly. I mean, you can see instead of having one thread per millimeter, it's got like a half a thread per millimeter. I mean, they really
Right.
stretch out. But the factory studs are just wonderful studs. Wonderful studs. You never have to change them. That's the
Oh,
rule.
okay.
That's the rule. If you do, then you go on to the ARB, I think, not ARP. Anyway,
ARP.
ARP,
ARP, your friend Tom Allen
performance.
ARP.
knows for the teenage.
Performance. All right. Yep.
Right.
Okay. And those are, and on that stud set's what, $150 or something or other.
Yeah.
And it comes
Right.
and it comes with all this special goo because when you're tightening up a nut on a stud, you're torquing it, trying to get the clamping force the same. Of that torque that you've got, half a third of the torque is being used up between the nut and the stud, another third between the nut and whatever's dragging against, leaving only a third for the stretch of the bolt for the clamping force. So those ARP studs, it come with some special oil on it. Maybe they're made out of something special too. They're really nice to install because you can install them with a hex. But then you look at it and you instantly know that it's not original. It's got these racing studs anyway, and then the studs look stupid. Or the nuts look stupid at 12 point and they get a flange on them. It's like, wait a minute, those aren't original.
Right.
But anyway, those you only have to clamp down to, I don't know, 40 pounds and it still gives the same clamping force because the amount it chewed up between the nut and the stud and the nut and the surface of the head or the washer is dramatically less. So the clamping
Right.
force ends up being the same. So
Okay. Well, thank you.
yeah. Terry Luft, friend of the 74 midget. It's a bad bachelor lean. Ever swap leaf springs right to left? Sure. Sure. That's the poor man's repair. Then it leans the other way, but then when you get in it, it kind of straightens out. So yeah, that's it because you can't. Most spring shops, I've never heard of a spring shop that will rebuild a midget spring. I just talked to a guy the other day who said, "Should I buy new springs or get my original springs rebuilt?" I said, "Get your original springs rebuilt. You know what you're getting." And but the MGB and MGA leaf spring width is as small as most spring shops have. They won't do a midget, and they certainly won't do a quarter elliptic from a bug eye. So let's see. Um, just a minute here. And John Lynn said that he did that on his own car. So, okay, we got book orders. So anyway, we got more advertising here and home stuff. So it's 9 o'clock and it's like I went through all this list, this list that I had on about why you might lose forward motion and spent some time talking about all the other stuff before I talked about why the engine quits. So and it's always something. Although some people have explained it's taken a while to find out what it is, especially when it's something that's not, like not really obvious. A loose connection on the bottom of an electronic ignition, or a vacuum someplace, or a hot fuel pump. Anyway, remember, you always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first. If you got some questions about your car and you can't get it sorted out, no, or you want another opinion, I'm happy to give you an opinion. I don't always have the exact right answer, but I'll try to steer you in the right direction.
John, Jeff Field, should I call you tomorrow at 1:05?
What would you have, a starter motor? Would you have, Jeff, on your car?
The coupling between the starter cable and the rod coming out of the starter switch. Yeah, you said good luck. In my email earlier today, you said good luck.
So the starter cable, the wound wire starter cable that splays, that you cannot get small enough to get back into the thing. So you take the starter cable all the way. If it's an original starter cable, you pull it all the way out. You can unsolder that wire from the cable just with a little propane torch. You go to the bicycle brake shop, you get a new bicycle brake cable. They come in enormous lengths, 6 foot long or something, way too long for what you need. But it's got an end on it that's already tinned, and it's good. So you cut it a little longer than you need it, but it's all brand new, soldered into your cable, and then that'll fit into that coupler, just easy schmeezy.
I already have the cable in, and it's all hooked up and everything. I can't pull the handle out.
How new is the cable that goes from the dash down to the switch?
Where did you buy your TD in Grafton?
Oh, okay. All right. So that's old. Well, why wouldn't it? Because the switch, can you push the switch by hand? Is the switch?
Oh, yeah.
Switch just. So maybe one of the wires is balled up inside the outer sheath. Is the reason I ask if it was a new cable is the new cable comes is 4 foot long and only has to be 32 inches or something, or 28 inches, God knows. So you put it down into place, and you pull the inner cable out. You clip it off so it's as short as you can make it, because the longer it is, the harder it is to pull. So that's why I asked if the outer sheath was too long. Other than that, you take it apart, you pull it apart, you put grease on the cable and send it back through again. And I'm doing this with my fingers because you're always twirling it so that it doesn't ravel at the end. My late wife, Caroline's step grandfather, was adamant that you should never use the word unravel, because it's like using the word irregardless. Unravel means ravel means unravel. So it was picked up a whole lot earlier. It's a part of the language now, just like irregardless will be pretty soon. Anyway, you don't want to have it ravel, and so you got to turn it in the direction that it tends to tighten it. But you know all that. I'm just saying that for everybody else. So
thank you, sir. But
yes, call me anytime.
Okay, anytime.
Do we have any more questions?
I do. I have one question.
Dave.
Yes.
Lack of forward motion. That's when you get you T-bone an F-150. Oh
You
my
remember
God.
that?
Oh my
Actually, it wasn't. That isn't what I T-boned. It was a Jeep.
Okay.
But my question is this: it's a little bit off of your topic, maybe, but I have been trying to find an intermittent battery drain for 2 years. I've bought 2 or 3 new batteries. I've done both amp and voltage tests of the voltage regulator. I have done
This is a 1960 MGA.
Yeah. It's a 59, but it's been modified with all the Mark II stuff. I've done a generator tests. I've done ohm tests.
You have a radio in the car?
No, I do not. It's maddening. And this is the irony. I can go 2 or 3 months with no issue, and then all of a sudden I go out there to start it, and I have a totally drained battery completely.
It's the next door
I mean,
neighbor. It's
the
the
only
next
thing I
door
can
neighbor
think of.
kid. It's the next
Pardon?
door neighbor's kid coming over and turning on your headlights. Um, are you sure the battery's dead and it's not just a bad battery connection someplace that makes you
Well,
think it's dead?
I have done, I've actually put 3 new batteries in that 2 year period. Okay, just because I said, oh, this is bad, I took it back. This is bad, I took it back. I said, no, these batteries are good. I have, as far as the grounds and stuff, I've used things like the star washers.
Yeah, the only thing that's on, I mean, the only thing that can be on is the key and the horn. I mean, that's it. You got to
Yeah,
have
and,
or
and
the light switch.
it's not that circuit. I swore it was going to be the horn circuit, but it wasn't.
So you can put an ammeter, a milliamp meter.
Yes.
I mean the old fashioned way. If you've got a drain, you put a drain that you can measure. It's like right there, drains it each night. You put a test. You take the ground strap off the battery, and then put a test light between the post on the battery and the ground strap, and whatever is drawing current will light up that light, and then you begin disconnecting stuff. I just talked to a guy the other day, he had that problem, and I said, well, there's the trunk light, there's a late model B, trunk light, anti-run-on valve. I said, but then you can always disconnect the alternator, and he pulled the plug on the alternator, and it went out, and he says, why would that draw? And I said, oh, one of the diodes has gone continuous, and it's just draining the battery, but yours sounds like it's erratic, so that's really tough to find.
Oh, it really is.
And if
It
it's
is intermittent and it's driving me nuts.
and
I
if
just
it's,
thought I'd throw it out there.
yeah, well, I'll think about it.
Can I make a suggestion? I installed a shut-off switch in the bulkhead behind the passenger seat in my A. So whenever I'm not using the car, I just disconnect the battery.
I do the same thing. I do the same thing every night. I do. After this problem continued, I kept doing that.
And that solved the problem.
I had the same thing.
Well, I can't. Well, I will say that it it seemed to for a while, but I don't remember the last time I took it out, which was Thursday night. I can't be absolutely 100% sure that I turned the kill switch off. So I can't say absolutely. But I will say that when I tried to go to a meet Saturday morning, it wouldn't start.
So what sort of turn signal flasher do you have there? One of the modern EL13s, the transistor ones, or you got the original one, turn signal flasher?
Yeah, I've got the original kind. Yeah,
Okay.
so
All right,
you're
though
talking about up there in the firewall.
Yeah, it couldn't. It can't be that anyway. But
I have replaced that, thinking that might be it.
Dave, do you have a light underneath that you installed underneath the hood or the deck lid in the rear?
No.
No. He said
You might want to
batteries.
You might want to check your kill switch.
He said that they were good. Now, maybe I misunderstood him, but were the batteries that you replaced bad? Were they?
No, I kept one of them. I've got it on my workbench, and it has kept a 0.9 charge all year.
Right, the battery is not the problem. Something is causing the car to drain out.
Even with a ground switch.
Well,
God, what do you got?
The next question. A lot of people will put that disconnect switch on the positive side instead of on the earth, and it works better if you put it on the earth side, I'm told.
Mine is on the earth side. It
Wouldn't-
is on.
Shouldn't
I
make
give up.
shouldn't make a what a difference. Well, Dave, that will leave.
John, Rudy.
All right,
Rudy.
John, Rudy, real quick. I had the same problem on my Mustang, and the only way I found it, the cable itself was in the clamp of the battery clamp, but it was so old, it was loose, but you never would have found it. And so I was just lucky enough that one day I pulled it and it came right out of the clamp.
Sure.
And
Okay.
that's what it was, a really bad connection.
Yep, but that wouldn't deaden the battery. Unless I thought you were going for something else. I thought you were going to say you had a little bit of a wire and it was touching someplace on the top of the battery and it was ground. Batteries will self-discharge if the top of the battery is dirty.
Right.
It used to be with twin sixes and a B. Oh my gosh, you'd pull the battery cover off and there's mud up in there, and the guy wonders why his batteries are going dead. It's like, well, some of the electricity is going through the mud to the other cable, But Dave's been changed. I don't know. That's a good one, Dave. I don't know.
Okay.
You have an
Thank
amp
you.
regulator?
Thank you. I won't take any more time, but I just thought I would toss it out.
Yeah.
John, what about putting an amp meter on it?
Nope. Well, yes, we talked about putting instead of a test light, putting a milliamp meter on it.
I did all that.
Yeah,
I've done
there's
the amp tests. I've done the voltage tests. I've done everything that Barney says to do.
So I'm back to the kid next door.
Yeah.
Turning your lights on. I don't know.
Voltage regulator.
Yeah, I bet it's the voltage regulator.
2 volts.
Well, that's where I'm coming down to it has to be the voltage regulator that somehow. Well, let me ask you this. This is another quick question. To clean those points on the voltage regulator, what, 800 or 1,000?
Something. Yeah, something real fine. Something real fine, and just be careful of there's 2 sets of points there. There's the one set of points that don't make any difference in this case, which are the voltage regulator points, and they're normally closed. They're over on the left side, and then as you're looking at it with the bobbins in front of you and the terminals in front of you, and then the cutout, the switch that connects the battery to the generator. And if that switch stays closed, then all the electricity in the battery goes into the generator and sets it on fire. That happened to Doug Kniff 50 years ago on a Healy that he had. He was fiddling around with a terminal. So anyway, when you go to clean the cutout, if you push that cutout closed, you cannot get it open. The magnetism is so great you cannot pop. You get a screwdriver maybe. Easiest way is disconnect the battery, but in the meantime, your generator's burning up. So unless something's crawled in on the backside, something is floating around on the inside of the back of the control box. There's no way that can discharge or cause a discharge unless there's something floating around back there. But that's
if the cutout is stuck shut, do you see the ignition light?
Oh, yeah, you see the smoke out of the generator.
Oh, it's that bad. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's instant.
Yeah, but if the regulator was the problem, the disconnect switch at the battery
would take care of
eliminates that.
You're right. Judd's right. Thank you, Judd. I don't know. Dave, you got
batteries were not discharged.
What was that last comment? You don't think it's the cutout switch on the voltage regulator? Huh?
Well, because
not if you're using.
Because if you turn the master battery switch off, the electricity can't get out of the battery.
Absolutely. But that one I'm not 100% sure on. I've told a couple people I did it, but maybe I had too many bourbons.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, John. Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Well, hey, we're going to bring it to an end tonight. We're at 9:14.